Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're casting our deck as soon as turn 4 with the help of those four fellas. Oh yeah. And we're finishing them off with Pia. Let's go. Alright, let's see what we get. That looks pretty good. We have a scroll to protect one of the arrows here and even a Relic of Legends to have quite some mana later. Rakdos land? Ooh, who are you? Play out the scroll with a little lag. Scroll's really nice because it can protect our strong 2 mana play here. Alright. Play out our strong 2 mana play. Naked, that is. I mean, now the good thing is that they can't proactively curve out with a 3-drop unless they have like another barrage into like an harvester or something like this. If they also would like to remove the Runa here. But yeah, that's not bad either with their curve out. Alright, so I think now we loot first and then don't play Relic but a creature because if I had another 2-drop I wouldn't do that. I could curve out that way, but now we just play the land and the arrows. You could go full control here because obviously now you can't loot with the Runa because you would still have to discard but would not be able to play the 2 cards exiled from library. But I think we're just happy with the hand, right? We have the backup Aeroth, which is always great because it's one of the best cards. The Relic and the Unctus are perfect here, and then extra land is also what we want. And what better untapped land to have access to than Otawara, when you have already all the colors. I think the block makes sense here. A punish could be like Brotherhood's End because this is game 2. They could really have that, but we have the Relic, which we really want to protect, and also the Unctus, which is an artifact creature, and we have a second Aeroth. And we never know if they don't have the card, or a Braid, I guess, but we don't know if they have those cards, right? That's always something to keep in mind. Like, you don't necessarily in general want to play around cards that the opponent does not have. That's also a power of those cards, right? Melira is great in general, but still play out the Relic first, of course, for additional mana. See what they got here. Nothing for now, which is good, so we can start with Unctus here. And yeah, I'm not sure if you are familiar with what those 4 cards that I'm about to have in play, or that I have in play here, are able to do together, but they are kind of let's maybe like pause the video here real quick. They are kind of a infinite combo, let's say, in the deck that we are playing here at least, which consists for a big chunk out of 2 mana legend cards and a bunch of 3 mana legend cards and 4 scrolls essentially. And I will explain it now, I think, and then continue with the gameplay. But to say it short, now we can draw our deck and win with Pia by exiling all the cards from the deck, and Unctus gives the Thopter tokens, which have haste, the buff, and we should be able to assemble 10 Thopters / play 10 cards from exile after we hit Pia. We have 3 Pias in deck, so that shouldn't take too long. I also have another version which plays well of Assimilation, and then the Thopters technically even are 3/3s, but I come to that version in the next game. And yeah, I have timestamps in the video here, so you can also just, if you want, jump to the point where I'm finished with this explanation. So, what happens here essentially is Rona has the ability to loot, as you know, and whenever you play a legendary card, or in this case, creature, of course, you can untap the Rona. But Aeroth says, whenever you would draw a card, you exile the top 2 cards of your library instead. And what that means, maybe you have also, by the way, seen my last video on the channel where I published a similar deck to this, so you might already know it, but that means basically that you get to exile the top 2 cards of your library, then you can play one of those cards, like in general a 2-drop legend, and then you get to untap the Runa, and then with the Relic of Legends in play, you can then use the new card, like this Melira in this case here, and the Runa again for mana, because the Runa untaps itself when you play a new card. Now, in the version, for example, that I posted as the last video in the channel, you were not able to go through your entire deck because you didn't have enough cheap cards and you did not have Unctus, Grand Mid-Attack. And this is like one of the last pieces. I also featured Unctus in other decks. I think this is a really super solid card. And again, all these cards are great by themselves. Unctus also, but it's probably the weakest by themselves of all of them, but still I think this is one of the biggest arguments for this deck, because usually if you sort of have some combo decks, the individual pieces are not so good by themselves, which is I think what puts this a little over the top potentially. But yeah, if you didn't know it already, Unctus passive says whenever a blue creature you control gets tapped, you get to loot basically, draw and discard. And then the same thing basically happens that I just mentioned with arrows, so you get to exile the top 2 cards of your library instead and you don't have to discard. And that of course works beautifully with Relic of Legends and any card, because you can also make it blue with Unctus ability for even 0 mana by just paying 2 life. But of course perfectly with Rona, because you can just use Rona, tap it for mana with the Relic of Legends, play your extra card, can use then, as also mentioned just before, the new card for mana and the Rona for mana. So basically your 2 drops cost 0 mana, your 3 drops cost 1 mana, and Scrolls net even 1 mana. Which usually, and usually you will see this in a second, allows you to play your entire deck basically. And then we just keep chaining through our entire deck until we find Pia, make those 2 Thopters, swing and win. And of course you can also have different approaches with the deck, but I will cover this after this video a little bit. And yeah, maybe like one additional last note here, of course it does not always happen on turn 4, like turn 5 or 6 or even 7 is the more like realistic scenario where this is happening. And it could have been the case that you drew already a couple of Pias or they removed some so that you draw your Pia late, or they gained life already, or have like something like Atraxa in play, which either scenario could result in not being able to finish off the opponent right away with hasty 2 Thopters. But you can just untap and then swing again. So it's not even that bad. If you leave some cards in the library back, and even if you don't leave cards in the library back, and if the opponent does not play something like let's say big white ramp or white aggro, which all have access to exile removal, then you would still be in decent shape, right? Plus they have to realize that they have to remove the arrow, because obviously you cannot deck with, and this it's not obvious, but if you read the card, I guess it is, you cannot deck with arrows, because you would exile the top 2 cards of your library instead of drawing a card when you would draw a card when you have no cards in the library. So the opponent would have to realize and have the exile answer, because obviously if you play all the creatures from your deck, you have Hajar and or Melira, most likely both of them to protect the arrow. Maybe even an untapped scroll that has no summoning sickness, but that of course is not always the case. So yeah, exile removal could get you, but you'd always just choose to not exile the last 4 cards of your library, for example, if that would be a concern. And it definitely could be a concern if you're up against like big white or ramp. And there's a couple more things to say, but I think now I should just continue with the video and show you guys the darn combo. Alright, so I will play the Melira here. I will always make sure to tap the Rona, of course, and the other blue creatures other than Unctus. Now with the passive ability of Unctus, as mentioned before, you will draw and discard 2 cards, and since you have the arrow in play, you will exile 4 cards of your library instead. Of course, interaction is problematic here, so we really want this Melira to resolve, and this is definitely where the opponent could punt and then we get lucky. We have to discard those 2, but that's fine, that's irrelevant. We draw our deck, most likely anyways. Yeah, we can make creatures blue, which is the first step to make here. Let's see if the opponent responds. Does not yet. Now I have to go full control, target again another blue creature than Unctus. Unctus does not count himself, notably. Then let the original Rona untap, use it for mana again. Usually I use white, because other than Hajar, I can cast everything else. Like I can still cast our blue 2 drops like Chips or Rona. So we'll choose the new Rona and we just play Pia right away. Of course, this is the first thing that you want to do. Tap the Rona again. Rona untaps. Now you have Pia also untapped in play if the opponent lets us. The opponent removes now. Well, obviously that's a punt. Now we can sacrifice with Melira and we get an additional mana essentially. Because now Aerith is untapped. So play the scroll here. Choose the Rona. We draw another scroll. Now I want to tap the scroll again, but not for white, but for blue, because this way I can use the new scroll and use Rona's untap ability to make maximum use of our mana here. Because now I can use the new scroll again for mana. Now I will also tap the other Pier and the Rona, because I play a new Pier, so when I use the old Pier for mana, choose the new one. Play another blue creature, tap the blue creature here, tap the arrow, the Rona, sorry. And Toluz is also great because its connive ability also draws us 2 cards. tap the Rona and the blue creature here. Hajar is great again because it can protect. This was enough for our opponent here. Alright, so let's go to the next match that I got here. Alright, so this version is pretty similar, but as you see in the opening hand here, I have one copy of Veil of Assimilation, and we are at game 2 here, by the way. The first one ended like this. This just was a little better, I think, to show. I have the Fastland but cannot play Hajar. That's fine though. We have double Rona, so we happily play out the Rona here. Luckily, they don't have interaction with the 2 lines, but that's fine. Yeah. It's just a ramp deck. Of course, this does not line up versus us well at all. We even got the Power Stone here. Not that we needed it, by the way, but of course we make use of it. Tap the Rona for mana to use the Hajar. It's not always, but sometimes important to do that manually, because otherwise the auto tapper might not choose Rona for mana. But in this case, we could have also looted before, which could have been technically better, but it does not matter too much. So play our artifact and pass the turn. And I should have also played the Fastland here, but it didn't luckily end up mattering because we drew the plaza. So the opponent curves out. Again, obviously this is not good at all versus what we're doing, like some sort of like rampier decks that aim to cast more expensive spells are in general not so good versus us. So this looks easy, but if we would play another deck, maybe your opponent's deck would look better as well. But yeah, go with Unctus, but also make sure to tap the Rona for mana first here. And I obviously target the creature without summoning Sickness, and here I choose to attack because it has Vigilance, right? That makes sense, but as it maybe turns out, I should maybe not have done that, because I have already 3 pieces here, and I could just draw the last one in an Aeroth, and then we could just win right away. So here, of course, I'm making Hajar blue as well. Try to get another successful loot, and here she is. Star of the show, Aeroth Tormented Prophet. Cast the 4/2 Human Wizard, and yeah, just get the party going. Have everything in play. Can tap Rona here. Also could have, if you would have missed, tap the Aeroth, of course, for mana to exile an additional top 2 from the library, but yeah, 1 was enough for now. Jacob, which was also in this version, have a 3-drop, which is fine. It's essentially costing only 1 mana here. Can draw another 4. Jacob was in here because it's just another blue legend creature, which is in general great for the deck, and it also has this draw discard effect and like a late game mana sink, which is nice. I also have the Loran here, and I will come to that in a second. But yeah, I'm always like prioritizing to cast blue cards and to make creatures blue in the early game, because here we're still looking for PI, and I want to make as little cast as possible but still dig as much as possible, and in order for that to work, especially if I'm casting 3 mana cards, I want to make sure to have all creatures being blue that I tap for relic mana here. So I pay a bunch of life with Phyrexian mana / life with the Unctus here. Play now a new card, the Melira. I still haven't found Pia. Like, I think now I'm checking check the exile, check the graveyard. Damn, still no Pia, which is super unlikely. Maybe this version also played only 2 Pias. That could also be the case, because you can just win with 1 flying top that has evasion, or maybe opponent that has no or only tapped creatures, or a scroll giving evasion, and then making infinite EDP triggers with Skrelv, Relic, and Loran. The 4 mana Loran that I have on top of the library here, and that I have also in exile, I think it was a 2-off. By the way, I dropped here. Nice. Now we have to play 8 cards from exile. But yeah, you could, and this is probably what I'm also aiming for here, trying to net 2 more mana by playing 2 scrolls, so that I can play Loran and have infinite mana / infinite EDB triggers with with Loran, because the 4 mana Loran I think says whenever legendary creature enters the battlefield, you get to return an artifact from the graveyard to your hand. So for that sort of loop to work, you would need either one Scroll in the graveyard or one Scroll in play and then one Scroll in hand. Play the second Scroll, legend rule the other Scroll into the graveyard. Then you can return one Scroll from the graveyard to hand, play out the Scroll, and you can do this basically infinite times because the Scroll pays for itself, right? Because you can always use the old Scroll for mana using Relic of Legends, and then the new one pays also for itself. But if you also have, for example, a Rona in play, then the Rona at the same time when you play out this loop will each time also untap. So you technically also have infinite mana if you want to play around with that. And then you could also make some cute additions, because since Loran allows you to return artifacts from the graveyard, you can like put a Graz in the deck. But this is what we have assembled here basically. But yeah, we would have just won with Pia, but now we would also technically have infinite EDBs with Veil of Assimilation, so... Okay, opening hand seems decent. We have Arona, we have top end. Oh, this is obviously really good for us here. I would like to say not that we need it, but of course this is really good to have drawn here. Opponent with their 2-drop, we with our 2-drop. Let's see what happens. Okay, so it's pretty much confirmed ramp here. There's a Leyline Binding, which has to target the Skrelv, and that's the power of Skrelv. Again, not that we needed Rona here. Our hand is already quite decent, but it's always good to have Rona. Or they could have just held up the Leyline Binding and then hit the Kayla, which I would have played here, so... Got lucky with that 1-drop there before, and I think this land can go, yeah. Play out the Kayla, then I can loot in the opponent's turn, I guess. So just pass through the steps. But that's why we put Skrelv in the deck. Like, that's why it's a 4-off. Okay. Invasion has been cast, we loot. The thing is, we hit the land, which was important. We are about to... So it's probably better to use the Reconstruction here, but... it's also not sure, like, if there would be any reasons to not use Kayla's ability, it's better to have the Reconstruction, but I think you could have just gotten rid of the Reconstruction here. I was just thinking if I want to loot here, because I have Unctus already as a good 3-drop, and I don't really want to draw anything else and then having a rough decision, unless maybe a Relic. A Relic is better than Unctus, so I end up going for the loot here, I think, therefore, and I actually hit the fucking Relic, so that's pretty good. Discard the sorcery here, that is of no use, and yeah, just play the land and get 2 things here with our Kayla trigger to basically net 1 mana, draw 2 cards for tapping my creature, pretty good. And with Relic, since we brought an extra creature and the Relic and tapped into play, we also get to put in the freshly new drawn reality chip that allows us to see / reveals the Unctus here on top, which is obviously super nice since we already have 2 pieces here in play in the Rona and the Relic. So pass the turn to our ramp friend, which had the 7th mana for their Phyrexian Angel here in Atraxa Ramp Unifier. And this is of course pretty scary to do on turn 5 for creature decks in general, especially if they're able to crew and attack the invasion here. Here I'm thinking if it's worth protecting it or not, because they get 1 extra mana and they play Leyline Binding, of course, in the deck, which could just be in the opponent's hand since they have 2 face-down hands, so we probably have to block here. I'm just thinking which with 1, but it's probably best to just give up the Hajar because we don't need it. We also would not necessarily need the reality chip, but you never know, and we cannot take out the bank buster even with the buff, so just a single block. And yeah, Atraxa would be usually pretty good with creatures here as soon as turn 5, I think, for the opponent. Not too sure. Because of the lifelink, like you can't raise this unless you have Go for the Throat or Ossification or something like this at the ready, so not bad start for the opponent, even though it maybe looks like this versus our deck here. And here you basically see the power of Kayla. Yes, you have to spend essentially 1 mana to get this, or any, in this case, this Unctus 3-drop into play. But we still get to look at 4 additional cards for the cost of 1 mana, essentially, and tapping our 3-drop creature here. And there is Aruth on the top, so I can get it basically with Unctus passive by tapping Rona for mana, getting to loot, and we have the Aruth now. Like, this is insane. It was only possible because of Kayla's, you can basically call it dig ability almost, and we have the combo now. Pretty much I think we have the Pia here. Yes, we didn't need her, we could just dig through the deck until we have her, since we play enough copies of her. It is too unlikely for it being like a 3 of at the bottom 5 or 10, which could still happen, but mathematically it shouldn't. So we had her here, but we didn't even need her. I think it was mostly like the scroll for the protection early on, being able to protect, as I said, this turn 3 Kayla, which they could have otherwise with instant speed Leyline Biting could have removed. But yeah, here we are just good to go to combo off. Make sure to target your Rona all the time. Make those sweet 2/2 haste creatures. We still haven't played the land here, which I intentionally did so that I can have faster clicks here, and it's also an extra Thopter by now. And this Kayla just got the missing pieces of digging, in a sense, if that makes sense, to just find the last piece in the Rona here, in the Aruth here. Now I'm just doing this pretty quickly. I mean, the clock is running down, but we're not losing to this red line we would lose to the, I think, 5 minutes that is. Here I'm going full control, because now click one more time and tap the Rona again. You could tap it for mana with the relic, but since I already clicked on the Rona, might as well use it just for the loot. Getting, how much is this, 6 or 8 cards? I don't know. I think it was 6. Play another creature in the Melira here. Make sure to also tap the Rona, and we already have 7 Thopters, only 3 remaining basically. To lose is always nice if you have the mana for it, because she also has the connive, and the opponent now realizes that we are probably not going to time out. And yeah, this is game 2. We don't talk about game 2. And this is game 3. We don't talk about game 3. Those were funny. Alright, so here we are in another matchup. It's another game 2. I mean, the temporary lockdown you just saw here was pretty effective versus our deck. We will definitely hope to dodge that one, because versus Products End at least I can protect a little bit, but yeah, that's a pretty good card versus us. Opponent on Rakdos, bad chest. So play our 4-color untapped land, which is really good. Not so good as much, I would say, is the Pia Nala here as our 2-drop, but hey, you get a curve when you can curve, right? Opponent uses his creature for removal. That's unfair, so we have to let that resolve, I guess. And they main phase removal on my 2-drop. Interesting. I mean, maybe they think... I already forgot, we are game 2 here. Maybe I blended in here real quick. Game 1 went pretty long. It was similar to this. It was just a back and forth, but just Fable. Nice. It was just a back and forth, and we just kind of won with value, I think. And Pia was included there, so they really probably learned to respect her. So we get to kind of even with the oppressive 3-mana enchantment there, but the opponent probably, I think we can attack here, probably still up a treasure here at least, which is really fair for sure. I did attack here because I'm not blocking because of Brotherhoods and the Braid, but I am blocking with the Loran here, I think, and the reason is because you could say it's a combo with Aruth, that's true, and I definitely want to hit my land drops, I want the extra cards and everything, but that says basically that I would get to untap with Aruth. I don't know that. If I know that, then sure, I would not have made this block probably, but if I get to untap with Aruth, especially when having a scroll in play, I'm already good, right? I'm already in a good spot, so I think it's worth playing around that scenario. that that removal on Aerith would have happened, and if that's the case, I want to make this block with Loran anyways. So either way, you win, if that makes sense. The position, not the game. Okay, this was awkward because I couldn't play the Loran, and this is one of the downsides from Loran, just being 4 mana essentially. It's just a little too expensive, that's why I didn't play this version at the end. But here you can see the power of Pia and just Aerith basically. Nothing crazy, just another small synergy in the deck as so many, just shutting down their shield rate essentially. Like we're not taking damage from drawing cards because we're exiling them instead. They can't really deal damage because we get to make a Thoptus each turn, so just as mediocre draw as you can have with this deck. We can have actually so much many better draws, like for example not exiling multiple copies of legendary creatures as we already have, but can't complain about that one because we play 4 orbs and legendaries. We have to play off the top here, so this is a intentional downside here. I think I want the Thopter, but then it makes sense to maybe at least try to attack with Aerith first, so that's probably what's being considered here. So here comes the attack with the 2/4. Don't have to go full control because we have the priority with both Plaza and Scrolf, so maybe they play around Eigantia and don't block, even though that's unlikely because of Trespasser's Ward, but probably still worth going for it because of course we do get the untapped Aerith there in a second, which we play anyways because we have to right now, and this makes a token. Play the Rona, make a token. So nothing too impressive, but it's not like the opponent does that, since they're playing removal tribal and nothing proactive on their own. If they don't just have the Fable on 3 and the opponent has no interaction, it's not like they doing anything like really. It's just, I hope I get you, and if I don't, well, then I don't. 5 mana divination here. But just a couple of consistent tokens, they can definitely also be annoying for matchups like this, and of course this matchup is not rare. Let's say it that way. But yeah, we have this Kaylas Reconstruction lurking with our legendary white creatures here. Of course, the Plaza is also activated in a sense, but we don't hit the untapped land, so this makes me want to go Arona, discard one of the cards here, and then it's probably a Reconstruction, honestly. Not that Loran is great here, it's just that Construction is worse. I think it's more of a scenario like this. And now we get to make 3 Thopters. Yeah, play the 2 creatures and the land. And just basically keep digging for Relic at this point. Like all we need here is mana. We have the Rona Aerith combo assembled. The opponent also does, I'm gonna pause the video here real quick, also does not really like seeing this anymore, I think, which comes to a surprise a little bit maybe, because they could just use a couple of their removal spells, like, I don't know, go for the throat. Oh yeah, there's a Scrolf and play, but they could just play their expensive strong like sorcery, like Invoke Despair. Okay, that would just be a divination again, but they could maybe like Brotherhood's End, and then, so I don't really understand this scoop. Oh, but we have this Hajar here. And it wouldn't even work that well versus those 2 4 toughness creatures that keep drawing cards. So could be maybe a tough matchup for the opponent here. But yeah, anyways, I was getting a little like sarcastic here. Of course, the opponent's deck is really strong. It's just good. Sometimes they can definitely get us, especially if they get to curve out beautifully, especially with a Fable on 3, especially on the play. But it's Magic. It does not always happen. With that, I think I end the video here. I didn't have too much time playing on the ladder this month because I'm also doing other things, and when I play Magic I mostly brew. I'm like, I think call myself a brewer. I think this is what I like most about the game. I like building decks most, and when I don't have as much time for it, this is where the focus definitely lies. But when I bring hopefully successful creations to the ladder, I always record them with of course the intention to make it a video and to show it to you guys. So, as we would say in Germany, in diesem Sinne, I don't know to say this in English actually, so that's why, in this sense, if this makes sense, see you next time, maybe in the next video like this, but I also really want to try other things. I'm a like smaller channel, so I'm happy to play around with things and see what works, but more importantly what I like most, because even though this has a lot to do with with thinking and strategy and stuff like that, in the end of the day it is the entertaining niche, I think, a little bit educational, I think, in these kind of approaches, but it's mostly, I think, entertainment niche, I think. So it's important for me to have fun with this kind of stuff, and Magic, as you might know, is not always so fun. So yeah, trying to do some other things, I think, with upcoming videos. But yeah, in diesem Sinne, thanks for watching, guys, and see you next time. Have a good one. Ciao.